Hi everyone, it's Bukenya Huzaifa from Uganda, representing USDC as you can see from the background. And it's an honor to be one of the panelists for this climate survey launch. When climate disasters strike, not everyone is affected equally. Children and young people with disabilities last to be reached and hard hit. Today, talking about climate change as an environmental challenge in Uganda, but as a crisis that intersects with rights, inclusion, and equity in profound ways. Uganda has experienced more frequent droughts, heat waves, floods, and landslides, deeply affecting communities and especially those already facing barriers to full participation in the day-to-day life activities in society. Districts such as Karamoja, Bududa, Namisindwa, among others, also representing the different regions of Uganda, have been the most sufferers of those experiences to that effect, thereby also affecting the lives of children and young persons with disabilities. Imagine a child waking up to floods washing away their home or long dry spells, forcing families to walk miles for water. That is how people, especially children and young persons with disabilities, suffer from the negative effects of climate. That is how families, especially young persons with disabilities, suffer the effects of climate change. Yet most times, these people do not receive early warnings, which would have helped in preparing them early to avoid some of these risks. The recent data paints this picture clearly that over 70% of the Ugandans, especially those living in hard-to-reach areas, are reported to have experienced heat waves and severe drought in the past 5 years. In 2024 alone, more than 78,000 people were displaced by climate shocks, and 35,000 of those affected were children. Flooding and landslides, not excluding the volcanic eruptions, now affect tens of thousands across multiple districts each season and destroy roads, schools, and health facilities. These are not abstract, but they disrupt education, health, water access, and food security for families, and especially for children and young persons with disabilities. And behind every statistic are individual stories to tell, actually. A child who relies on wheelchairs finds evacuation centers impossible to reach. A young person with disability who is deaf may not receive early warnings, might not receive early warning alerts. In Uganda, these numbers of persons with disabilities increased from about 4.4 million to increased from 4.4 million in 2014 to 5.5 today. Yet this is not this is not in the central database. And yet there is no central database, I beg your pardon, tracking those who became disabled due to climate disasters. Among children under 18, an estimated 44.5 million have disabilities in already strained by this crisis. These young people face compounded impacts such as disrupted school attendances due to floods and drought related relocations, interrupted access to rehabilitation and assistive services when facilities are destroyed or unreachable. Increased care burdens on families with limited support. Heightened risks risk of injury, neglect, or abuse during emergencies. Yeah. Resiliency is not just bouncing back after floods or drought. It is the ability of children and young persons with disabilities, no matter what their disabilities are actually, and to anticipate or copy with and recover from climate shocks while continuing to thrive. Inclusive resiliency in Uganda looks like this. It looks like having accessible early warning systems and in sign language, having braille pictorial formats and simple audio messages, inclusive school climate curricula, equipping all children with knowledge and adaptive skills, community disaster plans that explicitly include children and youth with disabilities. So, as I wind up, climate resilience in Uganda will not only be sustainable when it is inclusive, and inclusion must start with our children and young persons with disabilities. Thank you very much. Nancy?